Good evening. I'm Irma Lauder, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm so lucky to be here with my much better half, Tally, at the kind of semi-annual Roam the Tomes as the financial supporter for the Hingham Public Library. And this is the fundraiser that is semi-annual, where they try and raise a good amount of money to support the Hingham Public Library, which is a jewel in this town, and it has evolved into one of the best libraries on the South Shore, if not in Massachusetts, thanks to the great leadership of Dennis Corcoran and his staff. The library is looking out and becoming much more engaged in social media and all the different new things in the world. And yes, we still have loads and loads of books.
Roam the Tomes is a fun event, just a night of fun and games, scavenger hunt. The theme is to see the library as you've never seen it before, and it's surprising how much goes on here.
You know, Roam the Tomes is a super fun fundraiser for the library, trying to let people see the library in a whole new way, introduce them to things they probably didn't know were here.
We call it Roam the Tomes, see the library in a whole new way. It is, of course, an event which allows people to come to the library and learn some of the different aspects of the library, different things that we have, different collections, different works of art. But it's also a way to support the library.
Roam the Tomes is this incredible event they put on to raise money for the library, and I was lucky enough to be asked to be part of it this year. And as somebody who raised their kids here in this town, and I brought my kids here, Patrick and Brendan, over the years to study and not study and read Consumer Reports for free because I'm too cheap to subscribe to it. It's great to come in here and help the library, and it's great to see everybody here tonight. It's a wonderful event.
The town pays for the building, and it pays for the oil bill and the light bill, it pays the salaries. But in fact, the library trustees, we pay for the books and the materials and the programs, most of them anyway. So that how we do that, how we work that magic is a long, boring story that I will tell you later on if you want to know. But one of the things we have to do is raise funds. The town is extremely generous. We send out a letter every year, and we find that people all over town send in very generous gifts to support the library. I always say the library is sort of a place for me, that is everybody, not a place just for kids or for adults, a place that everyone loves. So we're all so glad you're all here to help us celebrate this great institution. Now, having told you all that, I want to tell you a little bit about our guest, our special guest. Kevin Cullen, you know him as a columnist at the Globe. A couple times a week you read his column. And you may know him or you should know him also for his book, which he wrote with the great Shelley Murphy, Globe writer, Whitey Bulger, America's Most Wanted Gangster, and the Manhunt That Brought Him to Justice. You can buy copies. You can even take copies out of the library, but I think you have to get in line because it's a popular book. I did want to just quickly thank, there are always a lot of thanks, too many thanks I know, but I did want to thank the committee that put this whole thing together. It's an amazing group, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention them. So this group is Samantha Sam Anderson, Lynn Barclay, Maria Bromley, Ellen Brown, Erin Burns, Amy Crean, Allison Hussey, Susan Rebuffo, Sarah Taylor, Debbie Vassell, and then the co-chairs, Katie Sutton and trustee Tina Sherwood, who made this whole thing happen. An amazing group and worthy of applause.
Hey, 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 hey.
Well, Kevin Cullen and I were colleagues at the Globe for more than 20 years. He's been there now 29 years. But I have to say, I always felt I was never in Kevin's league. I don't think I ever said this to him. I know I haven't said it to him tonight, but Kevin Cullen was always one of a group that I referred to as my Globe heroes. It's a very small group, and I will never give the entire list. One of them was the late Robert Taylor. One of them was Richard Dyer, retired music critic, and Kevin Cullen was one of those. And to me, the Globe heroes were the ones who never did a bad story. Whenever you saw Kevin Cullen's byline, you knew it was worth reading. It was going to be well reported, well written. It was never going to be, as we used to say, a waste of trees. Kevin came to the Globe in 1985. He grew up in Malden. He spent a couple of years studying at Trinity College in Dublin, and I guess missed Massachusetts because he came back here and he went to UMass Amherst, where he graduated with very high honors. His first job was with the Holyoke Transcript. Holyoke, I think there's another name in there. Transcript Telegram, where he started for a couple of $100 a week, thinking that he was not asking for much, and discovered that he was making more than most of the other reporters there. And then after that, for a while, he worked for the Herald, Boston Herald, and then he came to the Globe in 1985. At the Globe, he's done many things. He covered Boston police. He covered many things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with the police beat. He went to Dublin. He was the Dublin Bureau and the London Bureau, covering politics and culture in Ireland, North and South, in which he did a fantastic job. To me, one of the most amazing assignments that Kevin had was he covered the Balkan Wars. Now, how a guy from Boston could understand and write about that tangle of ethnicity and religion and politics, but he covered that, and it was absolutely fantastic. Every story that he did about that was amazing. When 9/11 happened, Kevin was on that story the first day. Everyone else was too, but Kevin knew more than anyone within a day or two. He just had the sources and the instincts, the kind of guy who makes 30 phone calls before you can decide, before you can find the number that you want to call. Amazing. He was an amazing performer at that time. He also was part of the Pulitzer Prize-winning team in 2003, a key part of that team that covered the pre-sex abuse crisis. He is, of course, as we know, been covering the Whitey Bulger story, and that story will go on for many years, I'm sure. As a columnist, really, Kevin is what I think of as the best, sort of the best spirit of the business, which is not to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted, but rather to tell the story, to find out what really happened and put it in the paper. I always thought it was a great honor to be a journalist, because there aren't really very many businesses where you get paid to tell the truth for a living, even if it makes the boss uncomfortable, which you had to do sometimes. Kevin was always great at that, and as a columnist, he has been honest and tough, decent, humane, and always tells a story without fear or favor, unless you consider it to be favor for the weak and the powerless. He's a lover of libraries, he's one of the, I call the ladies of the committee the LOLs, the lovers of library, and he's one of those people, Hingham resident, and I want to tell you that it's a myth that Brian McGrory stopped writing his nasty Hingham columns because he knew that Kevin had moved to town. It's not true at all, that he was afraid that Kevin might tee off on the town of Weymouth. Nothing to that, it's just a myth. So Kevin is going to talk to us a little bit about libraries or anything else he wants to. Kevin Cullen.
Thanks, David. Thanks, David. You said it just as I wrote it. Groucho Marx once said he would never belong to a club which would have him as a member. I kind of feel that I would never go to an event that would have me as a featured speaker, but here I am. David had asked me to perhaps talk about libraries, because here we are at a great public library. It actually never occurred to me or dawned on me to think about my life in terms of libraries. And then after David asked me to say a few words, it dawned on me that I could chart my entire life through libraries. I grew up in Malden. My dad was a firefighter. Can't hear me? Is that better? I grew up in Malden, and my dad was a firefighter. And I remember, I think, the first possession that I can actually recall having was a library card that I got in the Malden Public Library. And I remember walking, because my dad was at the fire station right next door on Salem Street, and the library was right next door to the main fire station. And I would walk down Park Street and go into the special entrance for the kids and the young people. And I remember the incredible power of having that in my hand. And I would routinely, at 6 or 7, 8 years old, walk out of the library with 8 books, and I wouldn't read any of them. But I thought it was pretty cool to walk out of there, and people had to think I was fairly smart if I had all these books. And then as I got older, I started going around to the front of the library. And I don't know if you ever saw in Malden, it's the old Converse Library. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in eastern Massachusetts. And I would go in there and do my homework when I was in high school. And I remember studying, hoping that I would someday go on to college. And I did go on to college. And I first started out at the University of Massachusetts. And when I got there, the library was falling down. The bricks were falling, and the entire library was sealed off. And you had to go in through a subterranean exit, an entrance, to get into the library. And after 2 years there, I said, see you later. I dropped out of UMass. I went over to Trinity. And I was faced with the prospect of 3 incredible libraries. The old library where the Book of Kells is. And when I went in there, I had people from Indiana coming up to me asking me to take photographs of them. So I said, screw this. And I went over to the Lecky Library. And it was the arts building, and the girls were too attractive. That was too much of a distraction. So then I went to the Barclay Library, which was where all the science geeks were, and I got all my work done. When I came back, I finished up at UMass, and I remember spending weeks upon weeks writing a senior thesis that I needed to write. And literally a couple of nights, I wasn't supposed to, but I just slept in the library. I never left because it was intercession, and I had to do everything in that period. And then when I left UMass, I went to Holyoke, and that was my first job, as David mentioned. And the only thing that I did that wasn't related to my job was to go to the Holyoke Public Library. And there was an old-timer named Izzy Ziff, whose son was my mentor at UMass, Howard Ziff. And I would just go down there, and obviously you know that thing, Tuesdays with Maury's. Well, Maury, I had Wednesdays with Izzy. And it was the same sort of thing. I had this old Jewish man telling me the lessons of life that sometimes had to do with stitching clothes or fishing or stuff. And I learned so much in that Holyoke Public Library. When I came back to Boston, my wife and I lived in South Boston for a while. And actually for quite a while. And I used to walk down the hill. We lived on East Broadway. And I walked down the hill and I would go into the public library on East Broadway. And I had been covering a person named James Bulger for several years at that point. And the previous year, I had walked in and actually tried to set up a conversation with him at his liquor store in South Boston. Now, I walked in there thinking he wouldn't be there because I just thought, I knew his henchman, Kevin Weeks, who, I got along with him, blah, blah, blah. I said, I was going to go and ask Kevin, can you set something up with Jimmy and me? I'd like to interview. But when I walked into the liquor store, Kevin Weeks wasn't there. Jimmy Bulger, Whitey Bulger was behind the counter. And I sort of stammered a humana. And I introduced myself. I said, maybe you and I could sit down and you could talk about all these nasty things that people say about you. At that point, Mr. Bulger suggested I do something that is anatomically impossible. And I left quite hurriedly. And I had not seen him since that encounter, even though I lived in South Boston. He wasn't exactly a public figure. And one afternoon, I walked into the public library on East Broadway in South Boston, and I was in there for quite a while looking at some things. And I looked down the aisle, and who did I see but Jim Bulger, which would tell you 2 things about him. He was an avid, great reader, and he was too cheap to buy books. My wife and I decided to leave South Boston and move to Hingham because we wanted to live in a whiter town. And, yeah, that went right over everybody's head. And then in Hingham, it was a different situation. Now I had my own children. And now my own children started. I remember bringing my own children here. And, and it was, I remember bringing my son back to the children's section, and he was so excited that our neighbor, Liz Welch, was back there working. That's all, and and all those kind of connections. So everyone in this room could actually do exactly what I just did. If you go through your life, the stages of your life, whether you're a child or you have your own children, it involves a library. And that's why everybody's here. It's one of the greatest things about our country in general. Anybody can walk into the library. And when we all walk into the library, we all have the same card. There's no first class in libraries. When you walk in, the rich people don't go left and everybody else goes to coach. It's one of the great egalitarian things about it. And I'll leave you with my first feature story at the Boston Globe. After I had worked at the Herald for 2 years, where basically I didn't use adjectives, and then I went to the Globe, and I had this whole new experience in front of me, but I was still typecast as this cops reporter, the police reporter. I hung out with the homicide cops at J.J. Foley's, blah blah blah. So I asked them, I said, I really want to do like a feature story, but a gritty one. They go, what do you want to do? And I said, well, in back of the BPL, there are these grates, and the heat comes up from the heating system. And at night, on the cold nights, all the old homeless guys go out there and sleep on the grates. So I think I'd like to go spend the night and just write what I see. And a guy named the General took me under his wing. That was the name of the head wino, I guess you'd call him. And we sat out there, and Joanne Rath, a terrific photographer from the Globe, was there. And I was still on probation, and I thought I was absolutely going to guarantee my job, my career at the Globe. And so I do the story, I write it. The editors think it's great. It's about to go on page 1. It'll be my first page 1 story at the Boston Globe. And Eddie Doherty, the night editor, came over, and he said, we were going to use this photo on page 1. Is this you? And I look, and it's a photo of me sitting right next to the General on the grate, and I have a bottle of vodka up to my mouth. And I looked at the photo, and I said, yeah, that's me. And Eddie Doherty told me later that he was going to fire me on the spot. But he asked me, he said, why did you do that? And all I could think of to say is, it was really cold. And that was apparently the right answer, because he didn't fire me. And for the next, they ended up throwing all those old guys off the back of the grates. Who knows what happened to them? Actually, I did know the General several years later froze to death on Boston Common. So I guess I leave you with that remembering that a very nice, happy story to remind you. But, we think of libraries as great things. In this case, it actually kept people alive for longer than they might have. So that's typically me to do this. But anyway, thanks for coming tonight. Let's have some fun.
Why is Roam the Tomes important? It is a fundraiser for the library. Yes, the town does support the library, and we do have a good-sized budget. However, the needs of the library and the wants of the citizens of Hingham and beyond Hingham are such that the town can't meet it. So we need fundraising like this, and it's a great night. We have some wonderful auction items. There's great food, and I understand it's provided by Kate's Table. So thank you all so much for coming, and the next time they have it, I hope everybody that's not here comes.
My favorite part was the scavenger hunt. It really was exciting. And last year when we did it, one of the foolhardy things we had to do was to create a pyramid. And I found myself on the bottom of a pyramid above me like a high school cheerleader with my thumb up saying, well, we're going to win. And it was great fun.
I think it's just visiting with people, because what you find is that all the people who are here have a story to tell about their use of the library, their children's use of the library, their grandchildren's use of the library. They always say, this is such a great event, I'm so glad you're doing this. I think if you had it in a hall somewhere, which you could do, it wouldn't be the same. There's something about being in the library with all the books people celebrating the library, which is particularly special. In fact, I just walked by the checkout desk where I take my books out, and it has bottles of wine on it and glasses. And I thought, what is going on? But it's just a kind of a convivial atmosphere, all in a good cause. So it's something we do every couple of years. And you know, you could do it every year and it still wouldn't be too much. It's just that it's so much work that it takes 2 years to set it up.
I have a couple favorite parts. Definitely how pretty the library looks at night and what a great venue it is for a party. But honestly, it's got to be the scavenger hunt and watching people just have fun and be real silly and creative in the library.
I just think it's a really unique fundraiser because I think it embodies a lot of different things. It has the scavenger hunt aspect, which is really unique to a fundraiser in and of itself. We have the live auction. It's held in a really unique place. It's held at the library itself. So, and it attracts a wide variety of people, again, a huge age demographic. So I think from that standpoint, it really allows people to meet new friends in a place that we all love.
Just seeing everybody. I mean, there are very few opportunities that I get to see so many folks in the town that I generally don't get to see because I'm doing whatever. I'm either in Boston or I'm somewhere else in various parts of New England. I was in Ireland for the last 18 days and I didn't see anybody from Ingham there, but they're all here tonight.
So I want to talk tonight about the need that we have, what we would like to request. It's a smart board for the library. In today's world, where success is often measured by how technically savvy you are, even young children have to contend with that. So it's really important that they are current with current computer needs. As part of its goal to increase the early literacy of our community, the Hingham Public Library has said wishes to purchase a smart board for the children's department. However, I think if we get it, it's going to be used by more than just us. Anyway, just for your information, a smart board is an interactive whiteboard with a touch-sensitive display, and it's used by many of your kids in schools today. Examples of like a mini smart board are in the children's department. We have 2 AWE computers, and the kids are always using them. They love them. They explore lots of different things when they get on them. They use it for art, they use it for music, they use it for reading. In essence, they just basically explore. So the opportunity to coordinate library programs with smartboard technology offers exciting possibilities. All kids learn differently, and a smartboard offers audio, it offers visual, it offers the ability to touch the screen, and these different components help different kids who learn differently, and that makes for an enriching experience for all of them. So the Lingham Library has a long history of enriching literacy. Our young patrons have the opportunity to go to traditional story times a couple of times a week, but to prepare them for the 21st century, they need digital literacy as well. In addition to being ready to read, they also need the tools to get them ready to learn. So I want to thank you for all you've done tonight for the Hingham Public Library, and I hope you will consider finding a need.